Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a little propaganda review with me, your host, Imperial Dane. Game we're reviewing is called, or well, I am reviewing specifically, is called Battle of the Bulge by Shenandoah Studio. It's a little game on Steam, available for I think around now €7 to €8 or dollars or whatever. Slightly on offer. It'll end on 25th, otherwise it'll probably be around 10, so not exactly expensive. And again, it's not exactly a huge game. I think it was initially on iPad, and there's more games in this sort of series with some other battles. One could always hope to see them in the future, because personally I like this game. I'll state that initially I think this is really fun for the price you have there. But then you might be asking, well, what the hell is this game? Good thing you're asking. It's sort of a small strategic turn-based game. It's sort of on the level of Unity of Command. It's not Hearthstone, sort of more specifically focused around a battle, but this one, rather than Unity of Command, is even more focused on one. The Battle of the Bulge specifically. That's the only thing you get to play here. There are, well, basically you can play with a computer, and you've got hot seat, and you've got multiplayer here, where you can sort of play with different people. Basically here, you've got a series of scenarios, but they always play out on the same map. The difference is basically how long it lasts, your objectives, and sort of other factors. Like, for example, the end game, Bastogne is around it, for example, has a more specific, more aggressive setup. Like the draft there, go bitter end, you basically always play through, even you're losing or winning, it's all to the 28th, it's basically to the bitter end. You can sort of choose here between commanders, and they basically represent difficulty. Monty's easy, Bradley's sort of there, and Patson, you know, he's the tougher one. Similarly with the Germans, you've got von Rundstedt, Dietrich, Sepp Dietrich that is, and finally von Manteuffel. So there's a few options there to sort of keep in mind with. Also, as you might be noticing there, Axis moves first. Axis pretty much always moves first on this. Perhaps we are looking here at the Bastogne, where things sort of get a bit wonky very quickly, but that's another discussion. I mean, but again, let's actually have a look at the game itself. Again, what sort of graphics are we looking at? I mean, again, it's, very basic, as you might be noticing. It's also got some nice atmospheric music here, but basically this is what you'll be met with every day. A daily briefing with your objectives, sort of remind it there. You've got some detail, for example here, if you start from the very first day of it, the 16th, you sort of get some detail on your surprise attacks, the rules about it. For example, Allied infantry can't move on the first day. Axis armor can't move during the opening assault. For example, you get free attacks otherwise. You got the supply situation here. In that sense, there's a bit of Unity command. You got supply lines to keep in mind of. If your units get surrounded, put out of supply, they're going to be problems. They're going to be easy to deal with, for example. So that solves a little detail there. You also get Axis artillery, which basically sort of is very prefixed within these zones. You get a bonus to your attacks, but beyond that, you're on your own, mate. And victory points here. And then finally, every day there's these little news articles sort of covering the fighting here with small images and the likes. You can sort of see that. And all sorts of reading there. And there's also a larger section out of the menu. I mean, we can sort of read more about the war. So, I mean, in that sense, there's a bit to work with here with the game. You also got a few other sort of options here. You got the briefing, calendar, supply, and the calendar, for example, also tells you a lot of things. I'll get a bit further into that. But overall, again, it doesn't look very fancy. I mean, it's sort of more about just strategy itself. And again, this is also very much more focused game. Again, you're not here to manage production tables and all that logistics, politics, whatnot. Again, you're here to fight. You're here to take something. I mean, in this case, you'd sort of rush through the muse, get over it, do as much damage to the Allies in the process. I mean, that's basically it. As the Germans, you sort of got initially a strong hand. The Allies, as you might be noticing, are scattered weakly here. Like armor, infantry not looking too good, whereas you got elite SS Panzer divisions and other Panzer divisions, though the infantry is looking not exactly frightfully good either. So, I mean, that's also a little sort of limitation here. But overall, I mean, you basically sort of attacks happening here. For example, here you get sort of this menu. You can sort of see here there's some advantage here that's sort of applying. Then sort of get further in here. You can see here again it's sort of a bit, roll of the dice with this game. And you can sort of get further detail. You can see here what the different things mean, what the different advantages and so on mean. So that's a little thing there to keep in mind as well. In this case, we got a rather overwhelming advantage. We can see a likely hit's taken. Something's going to die, and it's going to die horribly compared to us. In a very unlikely chance, we might suffer a hit. Oh no. And then you sort of basically press this button, commit. Now here's also another important thing. I'll sort of quickly get into it. I mean, there's some rather unique systems to this game. Something that creates a bit of uncertainty. You might see here, Axis surprise attack. You got the dates. You also got the times. You might be wondering, well, what does the times have to do anything? I mean, you basically got every day 12 hours to do everything. Except on the first day, we basically sort of get these extra 3 sneak attacks, where we sort of get some things on. Here's the thing to note: once you've sort of expended it after surprise attacks, the units that took part in it can actually attack again. Otherwise, they actually can only attack once a day. So, little limitation there to keep in mind. Monsieurs and so on. So, for example, we attack here again. They got a bit more sort of to work with. Again, you know, there's a small chance to retreat, but there's a more likely chance this unit gets completely mashed out on the ground. And there we go, dead. I mean, basically, those little tabs, they represent the strength, and the white parts are basically represent, you know, how much actual strength you have. You can sort of lose them, and then once you sort of worn out those, you're dead. I mean, your units are gone. So that's a little detail there to keep in mind as well. Otherwise, you know, you might have some problems. But there you go again, 3 weak allied units, and there we go. Now the allies get to sort of move out. And again, you can always, you know, only attack once or move once. I mean, you basically all have to that way, you know, think about your decisions. I mean, if you sort of activate a sector, which is what you do, there's some things there. But here's the thing, though, about this system. You don't know how many turns you actually have per day. That's the tricky thing about the system. It doesn't tell you how many turns you have each day. That is completely random. An attack might, for example, take no time, or there might be like several hours between one attack or the other. So that can, for example, make a notable difference. And again, for example, it's all about activating a sector. Then you can push all the units out, attack in different directions. But again, you can't activate more than one sector per turn. So that's rather important. Again, we see here, not really likely here to sort of kill, but likely to send something running away, tail between the legs. But again, we also know some dangers here for us as well. So again, we attack. A lot of shooting here. Basically, sort of the white ones are basically sort of expended attacks. And of course, we sort of also get to some of the trickier bits here of the game, and that's also perhaps one of the criticism of this game, if you will. I mean, it's sort of, you know, random, based, I suppose, on rolls of the dice, but there's, you know, let's just say there's a problem with it. And again, there you note, all of a sudden, oh, hey, that's a lot more time expended again. So in that sense, you never quite know. I mean, you might suddenly get a lot of turns one turn, and next day you don't really get a lot to move about on. So you also have to plan for the most efficient actions. But back to the rolls of the dice, sometimes you can get situations where you basically, you have the best situation here. For example, they're out in the open, again, for example, forested areas with villages, really difficult to attack compared to, say, you know, here, nice open ground. But again, sometimes you'll push in 2 elite panzer divisions, 1 regular panzer division, you've got 2 infantry units out in the open, maybe sort of 2 paratrooper divisions, which are also ranked as elite, but still, and nobody can hit anything. I mean, that really happens. You know, nobody hits. And that's absolutely frustrating. Again, in those cases, there can be some times where it just sort of extremely swings, and that can happen several times in a turn. So that's really a thing there to keep in mind, and that, I think, is one of the criticisms of this game. It can get a bit too random, and it can hurt you quite a bit, sort of throwing out all planning, or even so, you know, even reasonable, you know, rationality or sort of, you know, ranges within that. So that's a little thing there to keep in mind. But otherwise, this is very much a strategy game. You just have to think out, you know, you have to plan ahead. Assault, because again, you can only attack one sector at a time. So, for example, initially, your panzer division's all spread out, but again, you want to really just push through. You want to overwhelm your opponent. So you have to sort of plan through the assaults ahead. You know, you have to sort of go, oh dear, set it up properly and so on, so you can sort of really get the mass, because otherwise you're just going to scatter out your forces and be worn down. So there's a lot, you know, force concentration and the like. So also you have to sort of maintain, you know, here the roads, for example, you know, you can only attack with 1 unit at a time over a bridge, so that can also give you problems. And again, if you hold, you know, that can give you advantage. But again, as the Allies, that's what you want to do. You just want to hold all the bridge areas and all the vital villages and just slow down the Germans until reinforcements come. Because again, while the Germans, you know, have all the sexy elite panzer divisions and SS panzer division in the beginning, they got a lot of troops, they got the artillery, and that's just one thing. As the game progresses, things are going to turn against them, and they're going to turn against them severely. Let's bring up the calendar. As you might be noticing, they're very quickly going to be getting a lot of reinforcements here. Just, you know, say that's the first day. Within the next 2 days, 2 armor divisions and 5 infantry divisions. You get 1 panzer division next day, you get 2 SS panzer division and a panzer division, but again, you know, things are going to turn against you, plus they get a lot more replacements than you do. So while there is some trickle, but you know, by the 6th day, as you might be noticing, things are turning against you, and it just sort of begins, just the odds set against you as the Germans as they progress. Of course, as the Allies, things get easier. I mean, of course, you don't want to still holding on until you can get the reinforcements there, but your things are progressively getting easier. So in that sense, it also creates two very different game experiences. In the one end, as the Allies, you sort of have just to hold on by the skin of your teeth until you get the armor and infantry and all the reinforcements, all the good stuff. As the Germans, you're just trying to push through as hard as possible before you get swarmed by the Allies, before they clear you out, because then, by the 23rd day there, or 7th day, then what happens, you wonder? Then the Allied air support kicks in. You can suddenly move not quite so long as the Germans, plus they get bonuses during the attacks. You can't quite wear them out either, because they get supplies, and so on, and it just keeps stacking up here. Plus, you're also going to have to worry about fuel, so that means divisions all of a sudden can't move. And it just, it creates this challenge again. You have to be all about speed, and that means you have to plan around speed. You really have to sort of constantly be thinking, do I really want to try and play around, or just want to push through? And again, it sort of creates a challenge that sort of keeps stacking up. And again, depending on the element, you can sort of really get a challenge out of it. And you really have to be careful, because otherwise you might suddenly find, oh shit, I pushed ahead, but I forgot to close a secure flank, so now all of my 3 Panzer divisions are surrounded without supply, and I could risk losing them entirely. So in that sense, despite, again, graphically, it doesn't look like much. Again, it's very simplistic, but again, it's sort of meant to create that excitement. Simple through, again, good lord, if this doesn't pull through, I'm buggered. So that makes it, really interesting, really exciting, really fun, at least for me. And again, I know this is not going to be, everyone's cup of tea, and of course there's nothing really, to be done about that, but overall I still think, it's pretty good for a game. And again, looking at those issues like, again, extreme dice rolls, which can be very frustrating, but there also, other bits, like, for example, one time I had, for example, I just lost a turn randomly. It didn't tell me, it just took away my turn. That's one issue. Sometimes there'll be sort of commands that don't quite make sense there as well. Some bits here and there. And that sense, it is a bit problematic. I mean, it's not without its flaws, not without its, little issues, but overall it's not, too bad. Nothing that sort of really breaks the game or the experience for the most part, except again when you get sort of those completely crazy dice rolls, basically just left wondering, what the devil just happened? And again, if you sort of play on the highest difficulty, you will at least get a chance. At least I can. Of course, sometimes you'll just still get a luck. And apparently they claim, the AI is sort of, completely made up from time to time again, sort of with different tactics. I know it's hard to sure how that means, because that's not exactly my specialty, and I can't really confirm. But so far, I mean, there's certainly a bit to go off. And again, with the different scenarios, you can sort of ease yourself into it. Start with Adjust to the Muse, which just has you reaching the river, and then you sort of, build up for sort of more extreme challenges, adding more. Then again, you can go for the bitter end, where you just basically sort of have to pull through all the resources at the Germans towards the end. But overall, it makes for, I think, a pretty interesting game, and again, for that low price, I mean, I think there's a lot of value to it. You sort of get a lot to do, a lot to play with, a lot of interesting little toys, and again, it's overall pretty damn fun, again, even for, again, these extremely simplistic, because, again, that's the thing, it's very much well designed, it's focused, it knows what it wants to do, and it sets about, creating that experience, and it does it quite nicely. I mean, there's also all these history bits you get, the article, for example, every day you sort of have there, on the briefing, that's neat. There's also, up in the main menu, you can sort of learn about weapons, tanks, commanders, so on, that's neat. I do wish they had something about, some of the divisions actually in the game as well. I think that'd be really fun and interesting for some people to learn about. Personally, I would as well. But, there you go, can't have everything. So again, for a game that sort of, sets out to sort of create this kind of experience around the Battle of the Bulge, it quite nicely achieves, and also I think, nicely reflects, the state of the German army here, its initial strength, but also challenges that came as the fight progressed, and certainly does it better than the Oberkommando of Company West 2, for those who know what I'm talking about. So I mean, again, overall, nice little game, really fun experience. Again, for 8 or 10, whatever, I'd say you're not going to go too far. Again, if you sort of like these kind of strategic turn-based games that are focused, I don't think you're going to get missed out. I mean, if you're really on to real-time strategy, of course, this is none for you. If you really want the large, bloated experience, I might say, like Hearts of Iron, again, this is probably not going to tickle your funny bone. But if you're curious or something like, give it a go, have some fun. Either kill some Germans or kill some Americans and British, depending on what side you choose to, of course, play up both. I mean, I think there's plenty sort of to do here in that game, and again, it does sort of manage to create two vastly different experiences on both sides, because again, as the Americans, you sort of really have that huge experience challenge and holding back the Germans, and slowing down again as the Germans. At the same time, it's their chance trying to sort of break through, ensuring you don't get slowed down, because even the smallest unit holding up any of these points here can absolutely make a mess of things for you. So, in that sense, the game really does offer a lot. So, thank you all. I hope this review has been entertaining a bit, but also educational. Maybe some kind of interest in this game. And if, you know, you do buy it, I hope you enjoyed as much as I did. Or even more, perhaps. So, thank you all, and hope to see you another time. Bye.